Hi, guys. It's Fred and Sheila with Hatfield, McCoy Museum Adventures and Fred and Sheila Investigates. Hope you're doing well, by the way.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. We've got an interesting video. Want to introduce you to somebody, and you may see him later on in life. Who knows? You never know how anything goes. But just wanted to show you how there's other experts out there, how there's attorneys out there, how you can't always go by one side just because somebody says something, just because you have a report and one person opines this or another person opines that. You're going to hear a man here in a minute opine that I'm a ballistics expert and this is 100% correct. He said that, and a man served 24 years in prison because of it. An innocent man served 24 years in prison because this so-called expert witness opines that this bullet and this gun was a match. And then you'll see what happens from this attorney's point of view. And again, this is attorneys and forensic people let's just play the video. We'll let it speak for itself. I'm going to try to talk very little. I'll try to let him do the story, and then Sheila and I will talk on the other side.
Yeah, it's very interesting, guys.
Pay attention. Relate this to the Buford Pusser case. This is Scott.
A single piece of metal smaller than your fingertip, and the absolute unshakable confidence of a so-called expert. For most of us, these are abstractions. For Patrick Pursley, they were the two things that stole nearly a quarter century of his life. This is the story of how a man was condemned to die in prison based on the unproven science of ballistic matching. It's a story about a deeply flawed system, one man's unbelievable fight to expose the truth from a prison cell, and the bullet lie that remains a danger to us all. The night of April 2nd, 1993 was quiet in Rockford, Illinois. Inside a red Ford Explorer, a 22-year-old man named Andy Asher was sitting with his girlfriend, Becky George, just outside of her brother's condo. Suddenly, the driver's door was wrenched open. A man in a ski mask loomed over them, pointing a gun. He announced it was a stick-up and he demanded their money. As Becky fumbled in her purse for cash, two sharp pops cut through the night. Andy Asher slumped over, shot twice. The attacker fled into the darkness. The murder of this young man sent a shockwave through the Rockford community. The pressure on the police to solve the crime was immense and immediate, but investigators had almost nothing to go on. The killer wore a mask, so Becky George, the only eyewitness, couldn't make an identification. There was no DNA, no fingerprints. The case was a ghost. For weeks, the investigation stalled, and the public's anxiety grew. Then, more than 2 months after the murder, police got a call. Through Crime Stoppers, a paid informant named Marvin Wyndham, who would later receive over $2,600 for his information, pointed them toward a 23-year-old man named Patrick Pursley. Wyndham claimed that Pursley had confessed the murder to him. Based on this single paid tip, police put Pursley under surveillance. During a search of the apartment Pursley shared with his girlfriend, officers found a 9mm Taurus handgun. For the investigators, this was the missing piece, the breakthrough they desperately needed. The informant's story, combined with the discovery of the gun, was enough. The state's entire case against Patrick Pursley would be built on the testimony of just one man, a state firearms examiner from the Illinois State Police named Daniel Gunnell. On the stand, Gunnell delivered the kind of evidence prosecutors dream of and juries crave: certainty. He testified that the bullets and the shell casings recovered from the murder scene were a perfect match to Pursley's gun. And he didn't hedge. He didn't say it was a likely match or a probable one. He claimed under oath that they matched to the exclusion of all other guns. Let that sink in. In a world full of doubt, this was presented as 100% scientific fact. The expert swore that this specific gun and no other gun on the earth could have fired those fatal shots. For the jury, that was it. There was no other direct evidence connecting Pursley to the crime, but this was all they needed. They convicted Patrick Pursley of first-degree murder and sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Now, at 23 years old, his life as he knew it was over. So how can an expert be so sure? To understand that, you have to look at the theory behind firearms identification, or what's commonly referred to as ballistics. The idea on the surface seems pretty convincing. When a gun is manufactured, the tools used to bore out the barrel leave behind microscopic imperfection, tiny ridges called lands and valleys called grooves. This is called rifling. As a bullet is forced down the barrel at incredible speed, these imperfections supposedly carve a unique set of scratches or striations into its surface. Other parts of the gun, like the firing pin and the ejector, leave their own marks on the shell casing. These marks are often called ballistic fingerprints. The process for matching them seems logical. An examiner test fires a subject's gun into a water tank to recover a pristine bullet. Then they place that test bullet and a bullet from the crime scene side by side under a special comparison microscope. If the patterns of scratches appear to align, they declare it a positive ID. For over a century, this technique has been presented in courtrooms across the world as an exact science, as reliable as a DNA match. But here's the huge system-breaking problem. The core of this entire idea that every gun leaves a unique, identifiable, and permanent mark has never actually been scientifically proven through large-scale, rigorous studies. Unlike DNA analysis, ballistic matching is deeply subjective. There's no objective standard. There's no rule that says you need 16 matching points or the patterns must align for 70% of their length. It all comes down to the personal judgment of an examiner looking at two images and deciding if they match. What one expert calls a conclusive match, another might call inconclusive, or even an exclusion. Studies have even shown that examiners can contradict each other or even themselves when shown the same evidence on different days. This isn't science in the way we think of it. It's subjective pattern recognition dressed up in the language of certainty to persuade a jury. In 2009, this problem was thrown into the national spotlight. The National Academy of Sciences released a bombshell report titled Strengthening Forensic Science in the United States. It was a sweeping critique of many common forensic techniques. The report stated that, with the exception of nuclear DNA analysis, no other forensic method had been shown to have the capacity to consistently and with a high degree of certainty demonstrate a connection between evidence and a specific individual or source.
And guys, I hate to stop him here, but we have to periodically in order to the Fair Use Act. Now, Scott, I don't think is going to say a thing about us using his video and promoting him, because this is the type attorney, this is the type people that someday hopefully will be taking on the Buford Pusser case. This is what is out there that's waiting to prove justice. And, you know, he's talking about these ballistics and about ballistics experts. They're about like a polygraph examiner, polygrapher. A polygraph is only as good as the person that's given the test. The more they give, the longer they give them, the better they get at it. So you're going to hear more about this so-called ballistics expert and him saying 100% it was this gun and this bullet. You're going to see what happens when people does that, because they've been qualified as an expert and they can sign their name on anything, especially if they guarantee you're going to be satisfied, and see what it brings. Go ahead, unless you got something.
Well, did you hear him say that sometimes they contradict their own selves on any given day or a certain day? So in other words, they hand it to him here and said, this is the whole case. They give him the information and he judges. And then if they just hand him the picture on a different day and just say, what do you think? He's not influenced either way. So he goes against what he said to begin with.
Well, another thing is it's different. It's different expert witnesses. It's according to who hires them. Prosecution hires them. They're going to go with the prosecution. It's the way that it works. Now they can say, oh, it's not. We go with facts. That's not true. That's not all the time true.
Okay.
And again, that's why they only had one opined that she was outside the vehicle. One opined that it was a staged scene. Why just one? Why not the FBI and the ATF, and why not the TBI's own lab? Why did they have to go outside? Because they wanted to be able to blame somebody if they messed up or something come back wrong. In my opinion, Sheila and I are using our opinion. We're speculating. This video is for entertainment purposes only and so forth like that. But guys, this is what it's going to take to show you all what the TBI and what Mr. Davison did on that stage that day. And we may get to that one day. Let's continue, and we'll talk about him a little bit more here in a little bit.
The report explicitly called out the lack of rigorous studies needed to back up the most basic claims of firearm identification. And yet, for decades, people like Patrick Pursley have been sent to prison based on testimony that claimed a level of certainty the science simply cannot support. From the moment he was sentenced, Patrick Pursley never stopped fighting. He wasn't a statistic. He was a father who had been trying to start a business and build a life. Now he was locked away in Stateville Correctional Center, one of Illinois' most notorious maximum security prisons. Refusing to let the system swallow him whole, he got to work in the prison law library. He pored over case law, taught himself legal procedure, and slowly turned himself into a highly effective jailhouse lawyer. He took correspondence classes and became a certified paralegal, helping other inmates with their cases while fighting relentlessly for his own. He wrote to the Center on Wrongful Convictions and any other organization that would listen, insisting that he was a victim of junk science. But he was rejected again and again. The problem wasn't that they didn't believe him. It was that under Illinois law at the time, there was no legal way for him to get the ballistics evidence retested. The law only allowed for post-conviction testing of a limited set of evidence types. So Patrick decided if the law was the problem, he'd have to change the law from his prison cell. In 2001, he read about a new digital imaging system called the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, or NIBIN. NIBIN was a national database that stored digital images of bullets and casings from crime scenes, allowing for automated, computer-aided comparisons. He realized this technology could be his ticket to freedom. A computer algorithm wouldn't have bias. Compare the patterns. He launched a massive letter writing campaign, sending hundreds of letters to Illinois state legislators. He argued if the state was so confident in this evidence, it shouldn't be afraid to take a second look with a new, more objective technology. His tireless advocacy, supported by outside activists, slowly gained traction. And against all odds, it worked. In 2007, Illinois passed a new law, the first of its kind in the nation, allowing for post-conviction ballistics retesting using the NIBIN database. The law existed almost entirely because of Patrick Pursley's relentless fight from behind bars. But Patrick's battle wasn't over. It took years of more legal battles, with motions being filed, denied, and appealed. Finally, a court ordered the re-examination of the evidence, and the results were stunning. The NIBIN system found no link between Pursley's gun and the crime scene evidence. Then, two independent, highly respected firearms experts were brought in to re-examine the physical evidence. The judge would later describe their qualifications as without peer. Without knowing the others' findings, both experts concluded unequivocally that neither the bullets nor the casings from the murder of Andy Asher came from Patrick Pursley's gun. The original experts' claim of a perfect match, to the exclusion of all other firearms, wasn't just wrong, it was the exact opposite of the truth.
Human error. Human error. This expert witness, so-called expert ballistics witness, had read the report where somebody had collected $2,900 through Crime Stoppers, and they had given the police this fellow's name. Was this an enemy? Was this somebody that didn't like him? What was this? But either way, he had turned this fella in knowing that he had a 9mm gun. So he turns him in as the shooter of this young man that had been killed. So this ballistics expert took that Crime Stopper information. Well, we have an eyewitness here. He said that this guy admitted to him that he's the one that done it. He's got a gun, and he's got this witness that collected $2,900 for turning him in, and he spends 24 years in prison because of that. Because that ballistics expert had that title as an expert, and he went along with what that other guy had said. Well, he told me this, or he told me that.
He was influenced.
He was influenced, and he let that title. And he says he just put that together and said there's nobody else. This is his gun. This is the bullet that came out of it. It's sad.
Why don't they just, if they're wanting something like that checked out, just hand it to the person and say, look at this and give me your opinion on it. Don't tell them either side of the story. Just see what happens.
The defense, no doubt, didn't have this young man at the time. He's 24 years older now. Had he had the money probably to afforded him the luxury of hiring his own expert ballistics expert
Mhm.
people. They could have come in there and actually looked at it and said, no, wait, this is not, at least you would have had a 50-50. At least the
Okay.
jury they could have picked their poison. They could have, I believe this guy.
Mhm.
Well, no, I believe this expert. And that's what you got. At the end of the day, after the computer had picked out and said, there's no way this is a match, they got the two other ballistics experts, both of them not knowing about what the computer had done, not knowing what the other one was doing.
Mhm.
It's like we talked about earlier with putting milkshake on the seat or putting something else, another substance on the seat for a black and white picture. Are you going to, if the person didn't know any better, could you show somebody on the stand, a so-called expert? And this is what they should look out for. A so-called expert, if they don't know and they look at something, they should say, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't tell.
Mhm.
But you don't say the red and brown substance that you see in the pictures, I'm going to refer to as blood. When you're looking at a black and white picture, catch my drift?
Yeah.
They put a lot of faith in so-called expert witnesses, where if they showed them some pictures and said, hey, what's this? What's that? And you're knowing that one of them's a mark, one of them's a set up picture. Oh, yeah, that's blood. Well, one of them's not. One of them's a milkshake.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Punk.
New findings blew the state's case to pieces. In 2017, Patrick Pursley's conviction was vacated and he was granted a new trial. Just before it began, another shocking fact came to light. Investigators, unable to find a gun at the crime scene in 1993, had simply placed Pursley's gun into the evidence bags collected from the scene. The state's original star witness, Daniel Gunnell, even took the stand again, but this time his testimony was different. He admitted that after re-examining the evidence, he could no longer stand by his original conclusion. His findings were now inconclusive. He even stated that he would not testify the same way today. On January 16, 2019, the judge acquitted Patrick Pursley of all charges. He had served nearly 24 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit.
Guys, it was always I know you've heard this before if you've listened to me. For 40 years, I was a police officer. And for 40 years, I said, I would rather let a guilty person go as I would ever to convict, incarcerate, or arrest an innocent person just because you want to make the newspaper, just because you want to meet a quota, just because you don't like that person, just because. I'd rather let the guilty person go and get them another day than I would ever to accuse or incarcerate an innocent person. You can't go back and fix that. He got $5 million for 24 years of his life.
But he missed out on his son and everything else.
Sure.
I mean, he lost
Sure. Oh,
in
yeah.
the end.
He can never get
basically.
that back.
Yeah, there's something you can't get back.
No.
Yeah.
And imagine the sleepless nights. Imagine
Yeah.
imagine what the man went through for 24 years
Wow. Bless his heart.
and how hard he had to work to prove his innocence. Again,
Mhm.
see, you shouldn't have to work to prove your innocence. This case should have been so overwhelming and so they depended on one person, one expert witness. They depended on one expert witness, and that expert witness lied because in the end, he said, well, I can't go with 100%. I can't go with that no more because he knew that there was already a computer that says he was wrong and two other ballistics experts.
It's sad.
Same way as today. It's easy to stand up there and say, I opine that this happened. I opine that that happened because people are so used to letting people opine and taking their opinions. You people that's on the jury out there, Mr. Davison, if he didn't do anything else to the criminal justice system, especially in Tennessee, you guys should know to stand trial. You should stand trial on every case that is out there. If you've been charged with a crime in Tennessee, you should stand trial. Make them prove your guilt. Make them prove it. Because the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, well, the Highway Patrol with their DUIs, law enforcement and prosecutors in Tennessee have lost all credibility. So in order to correct things like this, so this don't happen again like it happened to Buford Pusser and different people, Start standing trial, because you're liable to get people like Fred and Sheila McCoy on the jury that has doubt in the credibility of Mr. Parsons, Mr. Roush, Mr. Davison, and those ladies, and this one and that one has doubt. And because there's doubt, it's probably going to come back that it's a hung jury, if nothing else. Because after what I'm seeing in the justice system, especially since I've retired, boys, if you ever see Fred McCoy on jury duty, kick me off, because you're probably looking at a not guilty verdict right here from me. I'm probably going to hang your jury. You can have 11 guilty verdicts there, but I will hang it, because I just don't trust them no more. I don't trust what the police say. I don't trust what the prosecutors say. And if you look at the Buford Pusser case and the press conference and this so-called investigation, just like Scott's saying right there, right now, babe, you got anything?
Now, just because somebody gives you their opinion doesn't make them guilty. The person that they're giving their opinion on, that's not cool.
And it doesn't make their opinion credible.
Right.
It doesn't make, especially when there's money involved, especially when they're getting paid for that opinion.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He said in his opinion that Pauline was more likely than not shot outside, right?
Outside the car.
Okay, that's just his opinion. They shouldn't have
But
condemned
yet
him
there's
on
not
that.
a crime scene. They
Right.
didn't run up on in 2 miles, and they walked it. PD Plunk City walked from one end to the other. They
Mhm.
walked it within 2 miles, and they didn't find another crime scene. They didn't find a big pile of blood nowhere. They couldn't have, because there's so much blood in that car.
Mhm.
How could she have bled any more than him and her did?
Mhm.
They didn't find another killed outside the car, but moved into the car. Where was she killed outside the car at? There is no place.
Where did
There
the
is no
ground look
proof.
disturbed?
That was his opines. Mr. Davison said Dr. Michael Reveal opines that she was killed outside the car and moved inside the car. He didn't say how. There's a crime scene 60 feet down the road. There's a bunch of blood over here. He didn't say that. There's no proof. It was just an opinion.
Yeah.
And when you go with that right there, this is what you get. When you go with Mr. Elam and Mr. Baldwin and people's accusation and they're alleging, and then you have a powerful one guy with a badge and one guy with a degree, and they say this, you've just been convicted of murder. They don't realize that. They don't realize what they've done. They don't realize what they've done to the criminal justice system in Tennessee, or those people in Tennessee that ever sits on a jury that's watched our video. I hope that they really, really scrutinize the evidence and the prosecutor's office. Just because you have a man there with a badge on the stand and you have a prosecutor representing the state, that's who you should be looking at. Look at that person. Make them prove their case. Make them prove that person sitting at the defense table. Guys, in my young years as a police officer, I said, hey, if you've got a police officer in there and you've got a man sitting at the defense table, he's guilty. The cop wouldn't charge nobody if there wasn't a charge to be had. That's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. That's not true. Cops have other alternative motives, just like prosecutors do. And one of them is people don't like to lose. It's like a rival sports football game, how they'll. Anyway, go ahead. Let's
The
finish.
sad thing is, in this is, this man, it took him 24 years
Yeah.
to prove his innocence. Mr. Pusser can't do that.
Babe, that's a great point. Yeah.
He can't do that.
He
He's
can't.
not here to fight for his
24
rights.
years from now, we'll be dead and gone. And Buford Pusser, for the new people coming up researching Walking Tall or Buford Pusser,
Mhm.
they're going to assume that he killed his wife because of what was said on that stage that day. You're exactly right. At least 24 years later, like that's not long enough.
Yeah,
At least this guy was proved
exactly.
innocent,
He got to
exonerated in the end.
Mhm.
Buford Pusser will never be exonerated unless Scott and people like him get involved. And they will. They will, when there's some suits filed where people can file some counter suits. And then you'll see this go to court. And then you'll see how it plays out. Because, guys, there's some great attorneys out here, and there's some great ballistics expert witnesses, just like those other two that looked at the evidence and said, hey, this is not the same gun. This is not this bullet. This bullet didn't come from this gun, or this gun didn't fire this bullet. Go ahead, Paul.
His story is a horrifying example of the damage that flawed forensics can do, but he's far from alone. Take the case of Curtis Flowers in Mississippi. He was tried 6 separate times for a quadruple murder, with a ballistics expert testifying with 100% certainty that the bullets from the scene matched a gun connected to Flowers. After more than 22 years in prison and multiple overturned convictions, the charges against Flowers were finally dropped in 2020. These aren't just isolated incidents. Convictions built on shaky ground are being challenged across the country as courts take notice. Here in North Carolina, in a case called State versus Calvin Lee Miller, the defense challenged the reliability of the state's firearm expert during a pretrial hearing known as a voir dire. Kathleen Clardy, a scientist from the firearms unit of the state crime lab, was presented as an expert in the field of firearm examination. Under oath, Clardy testified that, quote, my error rate is 0%, end quote, but then agreed that there was no established error rate for the field as a whole. When she was questioned about the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology report that criticized the scientific validity on firearms examination, she said she had disagreed with elements of the report and asserted that the report should be viewed with caution because it was created by academics instead of firearms examiners. Although the expert's testimony was ultimately allowed, the challenge itself, which cited reports from the National Academy of Sciences, highlighted the growing legal skepticism. A North Carolina Court of Appeals judge later wrote a separate dissenting opinion, arguing the trial court failed its gatekeeping duty by admitting evidence of, quote, questionable value, end quote. This follows a trend where judges in states like Illinois and Maryland have started to restrict this kind of testimony, with one D.C. judge declaring that its potential for causing wrongful convictions is, quote, not merely a possibility, it's a promise, end quote. After spending 23 years, 6 months, and 12 days of his life in prison, Patrick Persley was finally free. In December of 2024, he settled a lawsuit against the city of Rockford for $5 million, a sum that can never buy back 2 stolen decades, a lost chance to raise his son, or the years spent in a cage for a crime he did not commit. His fight and the work of groups like the Innocence Project have exposed the deep systemic flaws in the justice system that allowed personal opinion to be presented as scientific fact. Our courtrooms are no place for junk science. To learn more about the ongoing fight to reform forensic science and to support the work of exonerating innocent people, please visit the Innocence Project's website and see how you can help. The stories of Patrick Persley and Curtis Flowers are a stark reminder that a confident voice and a convincing theory are no substitute for real, validated science. For a century, our justice system has bought into the myth of the bullet fingerprint with far too little skepticism, seduced by the promise of easy answers in complex cases. If you thought the junk science in this case was incredible, check out my next video about a lady that was jailed for 3 months over a bag of cotton candy. I'll see you over there. Now we're left with an...
Oh,
Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Scott Smith, subscribe to his channel. Listen to some of his cases. Listen to some of the things that he covers. I believe you'll be impressed. And Scott's not the only one that's out there. Scott's not the only attorney out there that stands for justice, stands for truth
with proof.
with proof.
Mhm.
He's not the only one out there that stands. There's lawyers backed up. Well, anyway.
Do you want to finish this, or are we done with this?
Let's see what the last thing he says here. But do you have anything else?
No. Okay.
If she doesn't have anything else, we'll let him play out. And guys, we'll see you on the next one. Keep an open mind, and not view for Pusser's place to prove his innocence. They had 7 years while he was still alive that they could have indicted, charged, prosecuted, and they could have convicted him if he was guilty. They didn't do it. They wait 58 years later, and in order to make a name, fame, and fortune, they convict him of murder. They did wrong. It's time for the people to stand up. and support. That could be any of us that's falsely accused of anything. If they get away with it, anybody can do it. Go ahead.
An urgent and unsettling question. How many others are still locked away because of this bullet lie? And what will it take to finally build a justice system based on fact and not fiction? Until next time, remember, arrested doesn't mean guilty.
Wow.
Stop it right there. Arrested doesn't mean guilty. Charged doesn't mean guilty.
Mhm.
Even in these cases with expert hired gun witnesses,
Mhm.
convictions doesn't mean guilty. Look at these guys, convicted, and they were innocent.
Mhm.
Convicted, charged and arrested is bad enough, but then you're convicted because of somebody's opines, or your reputation is destroyed for the rest of your family's surname's life. The second most law enforcement officer in the United States ever, second only to Wyatt Earp and Buford Pusser, is now known. Google, YouTube, Buford Pusser, and look, half the videos is going to come up because half of the people just signed up with Mike Elam because Mike Elam had the momentum going. He had this, he had it going so good that he convinced the TBI and the Attorney General to follow his lead. And they did. Now you know what Mike Elam says? Blame the TBI. Blame Mark Davison. He's the one that all I did was give them the evidence. All he did was give them a book and podcast. Mr. Parsons says, yeah, I have a fake name, fake account set up on Facebook where I troll the Buford Pusser pages.
Mhm.
What kind of investigation? What happened to evidence? Mr. Parsons, what happened to proof?
Wow.
We talk hearsay, we talk third party, we talk dead people, we talk Facebook and YouTube, podcasts. Whatever happened to
Innocent. Still proven.
whatever happened to evidence? Yeah. Proof. Truth was proof.
Wow.
Guys, if you would, please like, subscribe, and share my videos. I'm Fred McCoy 40. If you haven't been to Fred McCoy 40, you're probably missing some good videos because I post more over there than Sheila does. Sheila works. This is her hobby part-time, and she doesn't post as much as I do. And Sheila doesn't like posting real controversial or real. Sheila tries to. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and share. If you like our videos, please like, subscribe, and share. If you don't like them, you may want to go over to Mike Elam. He's got a page over there that may be better suited for you. If you want proof, truth with proof, and that's us. That's our channel. Along, guys. Also, there's a channel out there called The Bryant Report.
Yes.
The Bryant Report. Mike Bryant. Also, if you don't care, he's just started this channel. He doesn't have but very few subscribers. He needs some love. Go there and watch his videos. This is another one. This is another guy that's trying his best. He's a veteran, just like I am. He's a veteran, Navy veteran. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I like Navy because Marines, we need our Uber drivers. We need them to take us to places to fight. Oh, that's a Navy Marine Corps thing. We got that.
Just kidding.
He knows I am. Guys, he doesn't care. He's retired now anyway. Go to Mike Bryant's page, the Bryant Report, and subscribe to his channel. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. We hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye. God bless.